Welcome to the Angry Nerd Podcast. My name is Arshawn Wade, aka the Angry Nerd. The Angry Nerd Podcast is taped in front of a live Facebook audience from my mom's basement. The Angry Nerd Podcast is brought to you in part by some bad life choices and a few shattered dreams. The Angry Nerd Podcast is made possible by the money that my wife gives me from my SSI check, some chick named Joni, and proceeds from listeners like you. Now, if you want to be one of the listeners that helps contribute to this show getting better and better, go to Cash App. My Cash App is $the Angry Nerd. Speaking of Cash App and speaking of contributions from listeners, I want to give a huge shout out to my boy Aaron Vincent. Thank you. Shout out to my girl Cheryl. Shout out to my boy Jeremy. Shout out to Scott. Shout out to Russell. Thank you guys. These are people who have bought shirts. These are people who have just gave donations because they see what I'm trying to do here and they see what direction this place is going and they want us to get better. Now, we are about to start Hot Topics. Shout out to a couple of my people in the chat. What up, Brandon? What up, Ryan Green? What up, Jeremy Biles? I see you, boy. Okay, diving right into the Hot Topics. Now, this first topic, because of my opinion and my thoughts on it, some of us might not make it to the end of the show tonight. We'll see. But anyways, Compton sheriffs in critical condition following a random, bunny ears on that, random shooting. So the other day, a lone gunman walked up to a couple of sheriffs in a patrol car near the train station and opened fire. He shot one of them, I think it's 5 times, and then the other one was shot 3 times. And one of them is a 31-year-old mom, and the other one's a 24-year-old rookie. Both of them have only been on the force for about a year. Now, here's the thing, because it's going to sound foul, and I know that, but I'm still going to say it. There is a tiny part of me that's like, yeah, you know, and I blame that on the lack of response that the government and law enforcement officers at large have had in response to unarmed citizens, most of which come from the low-income communities in recent years. There's one gentleman, I'm not real big on sports. I don't follow sports like that, and I forget his name. One popular basketball player, he has a suit. I think it's a Versace suit, and it's made with all of the names of the victims of police violence over the past years. The fact that there have been enough people in this country killed by cops, innocent people, mind you, innocent American people killed by cops in this country to cover a suit for a boy who's 6'6", 6'5", something like that, 200 some odd pounds, a giant man. There are enough names to cover that suit. And I talked about this maybe 6 months ago, but the government's failure to respond commensurately, mind you, the government's failure to respond commensurately to these police officers who have killed unarmed poor people in this country. Typically, that's who it is. Every time I see one of these videos, it's like by Wendy's or the Jack in the Box in your local hood. It's never Beverly Hills. It's never Fianna Hills. It's never one of the affluent parts of town. It's always the low-income communities. And it's our sons and it's our daughters who are being killed by the cops. So it creates this weird dynamic where the human being that I am initially thinks, wow, that's wrong, man. These people are sitting there in their car doing their job, not bothering anybody. But the response by mainstream media, by the government, the response when it's an unarmed young black or white poor person who gets killed by the cops, they want to know questions. What was he doing over there? He must have did something. And these are the same questions that I have. What did they do? Well, the video only shows the guy shooting. We don't know what they did to him last week. We don't know. And the same way that I feel that it's wrong when people do that, when it's some unarmed poor American being killed by a cop, I think it's wrong to think that as well about these cops. But why do law enforcement not have the same zeal for going after renegade cops who perform these heinous acts as they do for whoever this brother is who committed this heinous act? The unspoken is, in the eyes of justice, in the eyes of the law, in the eyes of the government, cops' lives mean more than the American people that they have been charged with protecting and serving. That's the unspoken. Anyways, I'm going to move on before I share too many more of my opinions about what's going on with that. But if these cops are good cops, and if they are random victims of violence, my heart goes out to those people and their families as well. Now, you guys know I cannot not talk about Tekashi 6ix9ine. Tekashi 6ix9ine is jockeying for sympathy for snitching. He tried to go on Joe Budden's podcast. They denied him. He tried to go on Gilly the Kid's podcast. They denied him. Nobody wants to be associated with this guy. He's trying to go on bona fide platforms and justify what he did. So who else but the Shade Room took the interview? And I watched the interview for journalistic purposes, mind you. I watched the interview and I wasn't moved. I will say this. I will say that he is a tricky, charismatic young man. But the fact remains, he was involved in street activities. And when you involve yourself in street activities, there's a certain code of conduct that you are supposed to abide by. Well, Arshawn, what do you know about it? I know a little bit about it. I will say this, and I won't mention names, but I was stabbed 13 times once when I was 19. But I was living a certain kind of lifestyle. And I lived by a certain kind of rules. And those rules said that you don't rat, even on an enemy. We're out here, we're doing street things, we're outlaws. We live outside the law. It is cheating. It is breaking the rules that we live by. For outlaws, I don't live that way any longer, but for outlaws, it is breaking the rules when you go and cooperate with the authorities. So I don't care what Tekashi 6ix9ine says. I don't care what his justification was. It's just not right. I hope that he just tries to leave this whole street malarkey alone and move on and live a productive life. Obviously, he's realized that ain't for him. That's not who he is, and that's okay. But it's a real problem whenever you try to break the rules and then jump back into the game. Nope, you can't play the game anymore, buddy. You got to go play a different game. Okay, moving right along. Now, bear with me on this last name. Alan Dershowitz has filed a $300 million lawsuit against CNN for defamation of character. CNN apparently edited his impeachment defense of President Trump when President Trump was going through his impeachment proceedings sometime back. Now, the way that they edited the video, it appears that Mr. Dershowitz was saying he's the president and he can do whatever he wants. And they cut out the context in which he said that. He didn't say he's the president and he can do whatever he wants. He was saying if he's doing something illegal, it's not like just because he's the president, he can do whatever he wants. But after they got done snipping, clipping, and soundbiting, boom, we ended up with he's the president, he can do whatever he wants. And it appears that he has some pretty good traction. He's some type of government lawyer. I forget the exact title that he holds. So he said that when he wins this lawsuit, he's giving all of the money to charity. He said it's not about the money. He's using the money to show these people that they are not above the law. So he's saying he's going to sue them for $300 million. And then there are going to be some very happy charities around the country because he's going to disperse all $300 million of it, save his legal expenses to charity. Good on him. I say, Mr. Alan Dershowitz, good on you, because the mainstream media is pretty much horrible. They are, I think, just some of the worst people. I think that mainstream media is horrible. They don't tell the truth. And when they do, it's the truth that they like. Otherwise, they're going to tell some cockamamie lip service. They're just not good people. Anyone who reads their information off of the teleprompter and gives it to the people as if they're no wonder they call them talking heads. Boom, just had a God moment. All right, moving right along. I recently watched, this is the last hot topic, and we're going to get into tonight's topic. I recently watched the Cannon's class, Nick Cannon's show, and he had Kanye West on there. Otis May, what's going on, good brother? I'm going to give you a shout, man. Sure thing. But getting back to it, for all my listeners out there on Podbean, Spotify, and YouTube, if you're wondering who I'm talking to, who is this young man that he just spoke to? We don't hear anybody else there. Some of my buddies are in the chat on Facebook Live because that's all we can afford right now. So we broadcast live from Facebook while we record this for Spotify, Podbean, and YouTube. And I will tell all of my brothers and sisters on Facebook that if you want to get the full Angry Nerd experience, you should check it out on one of these platforms, because then you get to hear the drops. Boom! That's a bomb that you didn't hear. And when I say something real snazzy, you get this. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That was the round of applause. And you just really don't get that full experience unless you go and watch this show on Spotify or Podbean. But getting back to it, I watched Cannon's class, and Kanye West was on there. And I am a person who has been critical of Kanye West because, like most people, I see the sound bites, I see the snippets, I see the clips. This was the first time that I watched a full Kanye West interview. Not a snip, not a clip. And he was able to explain some things. I still stand on the fact that I don't think he's the greatest orator. But I think that he's one of those guys who's, as he coined the phrase, a multi-genius. I don't think that the spoken word is necessarily his niche, but he did say some very eye-opening things. He did share some information that made me believe that he is very lucid. He's very aware. He's not crazy. I think he gets painted that way because the mainstream media wants us to look at someone like Kanye West, who did not go about attaining success in the traditional sense. He didn't go to Harvard and go to Yale and practice law and then go on and have a successful practice. He didn't do it that way. He kind of circumvented the entire process that it takes to become a billionaire. And now he is one. So I encourage anybody who wants to get a little more insight. For me, the jury is still out on the whole presidential race. But after listening to him and some of his ideas, I get it. And I do think that he is an intelligent person. But I think that whenever he speaks in public, he should have someone write it for him. I think he should have someone write it for him because I just don't think he's the greatest orator. That's it. Now, getting into tonight's topic. Picking a mate. The right mate. Picking the right mate. I think that this is a topic that men, women, old, young, all of us struggle with. There are some of us have been fortunate enough to be around people who have a healthy, positive, just great relationship. It appears that they're super in love and they're compatible. They get along well. Even when they disagree, it's in a respectful way. But how do I get to that for myself? Well, as the good brother Zoe Williams of the Zoe What Show says, a relationship is a mirror. And You get what you put out. And I know that there are going to be a lot of women who say, no, I'm not this, I'm not that, and I keep getting dirt bags. Let me paint a little better picture for you. If you are a dysfunctional person, your dysfunction that rests in you seeks out its counterpart in a mate. We've seen these relationships time and time again. People who essentially are good people singularly, but when you put them together, it just doesn't work. And that's because the problem isn't your picker. I've heard an old head say that before. Boy, your picker's broke. And it's not your picker. The problem is you. Oftentimes, we will go out, and in recent years, men have become more guilty of this because previously it was when women did the choosing. And for the most part, they still do. But women, I need a man that makes this kind of money. I need a man that drives this kind of car. I need a man who has this kind of job. I need a man who can do this, who's built like this, and who does that and does those. That's typically always been the get down. Women kind of have this ideal man. And that's the first thing that I want to share. Get rid of your ideals. The ideal person doesn't exist. Why? Because you are not ideal. You're not perfect. I have never understood the psychosis that says, I'm not perfect, but you have to be perfect. And men, we are guilty of that in recent years. Once upon a time, I don't think it was as bad, like in Papa's time, maybe Dad's era, it wasn't that bad. But we have gotten to the place where we have to have a woman who cooks like grandma, does sex like Superhead, and she's loyal as Old Yeller. And she has to be a bad bee. She has to have flat stomach, fat booty, perfect breast. She had 3 of your waterhead kids. She's not going to have all that, buddy. She just ain't. Look at them little watermelon head babies running around here. Mom's going to have some stuff blown out of whack. But we have to get rid of these ideals, the ideal woman, the ideal man. And we have to start looking first. The primary objective is to do self-work. And let me tell you, as somebody who continues to do self-work, it is a very difficult thing to do. It's very difficult because when I get with self, I can tell no lies. That's why I say, don't leave from here tonight. Here's some information on the Angry Nerd podcast on Podbean, Spotify, or YouTube. Don't leave here tonight and then go and say, I know what's wrong with you. Let me tell you what's wrong with you, Jermaine. Oh, I know what's wrong with you, Keisha. That's not what it's about. Because here's the thing. If you tell Arshawn what's wrong with Arshawn, the first thing that the human brain does is put up its defenses. You're hating on me. You're burning bread on me. I'm going to reject any of that. That's why it takes self, going to get with self. And I'm a firm believer and advocate for self-help books. I feel like each man and woman should read at least 3 self-help books. That's the first thing that you need to do, because we have to fix self. We go into a relationship, a fraction of a person, and then we put the responsibility for our wholeness on that person. Can you see the recipe for disaster there? Am I making it clear to you how we are the author of our own unhappiness? How unfair is that? I'm not happy in myself. I don't know how to make myself happy. It's your responsibility to do that. Here I am, all of myself, with myself every day, all day, 24/7, and I have no clue how to make me happy. But I expect from my sig other to do that job. We set these people up for failure. We set these people up for failure because we have not done the work that it takes to become whole, fully functioning, self-actualized beings. And that's the kind of effort that we have to put into it. So many relationships fail not because of incompatibility. So many relationships fail because people don't understand how much work a relationship really is. Here's a tidbit. If you're single right now, under the sound of my voice, do not go get into a relationship. Go get two things. I want you to get two things. One of the two. One, a dog or a cat. If you live in an apartment or a house where you can't have a dog or a cat, get a plant, not a cactus or any type of succulent. A real plant. Take care of that plant or that dog for a year. At the end of that year, if that animal or that plant is still alive, you might be ready for a relationship. Because that's the kind of effort that it takes to have a successful relationship. Oh, this Negro is just up here talking noise like he got the perfect relationship. I don't. I'm sharing information that I have learned myself. I'm sharing information that I have had to practice, still practice, because you still got to realize that you're dealing with a whole other human being. Someone else with their own thoughts, ideas, beliefs, opinions. So you have to understand that there are a lot of variables at play. Sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I always have to take the high road. Is the relationship that important? Especially when you're like somebody who's kind of different like myself. You find somebody who wants to give their heart to you, and you find someone who wants to live their life with you. It's worth it to do that work. If you're single right now, it's worth it to do the work now so that when you come across this person that God, the supreme being, the ruler of the universe, whoever you believe in, when they cross your path, you have done the work to be prepared for them. Excuse me. The next thing we want to take a look at is forgetting the rule book. Throw the rules out the window. When it comes to these relationships, okay, now I've done self-work. I got myself together. I'm a fully functioning, self-actualized being. I know how to create and foster relationships. I'm ready to be with somebody. I found somebody. We were at Starbucks. She likes venti chai. I like venti chai. She got the bagel with the poppy seeds. She doesn't get drug tested at work, so she can eat that bagel. That's fine. And we hit it off. Now we're together. Throw out the rule book. The rule book that says the woman's place is in the kitchen. The man's place is in the yard. The man pays this. The woman does that. The kids do that. Throw it out. That rule book was written at a time where we had limited information. Now we have unlimited information at our fingertips, especially if you have a smartphone. I think homeless people even have smartphones. So that means we have an endless amount of information at our fingertips. If you question something that I say here tonight, Google it. I encourage you to watch the Zoe What Show with Mr. Zoe Williams, relationship expert. I watch his podcast all the time because he has great information. But throw out the rule book. Figure out what works for you and your significant other. When your friends come over and say, oh, girl, you're cooking. Oh, man, you do the cooking? Yeah, that's how we roll. That's how Casa de la Wade rolls. I just got lucky and my wife pretty much does all the cooking. She's not hinting. She's literally saying, when you gonna cook for me? When you gonna cook for me? So I'm like, okay, I got to figure out a day and surprise her with a home cooked meal. My man Jay, my man Jay said, I don't like the team on your hat. Lakers, baby. Like I told my son, winning, Lakers. Losing, Lakers. If I was in Timbuktu right now, Lakers. Yeah. Put your L's up, baby. Anyway, throw the rule book out. There's nothing that says we have to do these gender roles. That's where I'm remiss to say this. That's where I kind of jump on board with the feminist movement a little bit. We don't have to do these things. These predetermined gender roles. Do what works. Maybe you have a woman who's strong and has a big back and she cuts the grass, and maybe you have small hands and you're very soft in your way and you do the dishes and you cook and you do the housework. Maybe you're just better at it. I was reading that the Rothschilds, however you want to say that, they changed the game when it comes to who's going to lead the family. It's not the next oldest. It's not the next one in succession. They choose whoever's better for the job. That may be Junior. That may be Sarah. Hey, whoever is better suited for that job, you do that. You may have a man who just doesn't have a strong work ethic, and that's okay. Maybe the wife brings home the bacon and the dad stays at home with the kids. You have to figure out what works for your relationship dynamics. And do not, whatever you do, don't compare your relationship to Tom and Sally. Don't compare your relationship to them, because Tom and Sally are Tom and Sally. Tom and Sally's relationship is their relationship. Stay in your lane. Something that I've had to learn is effort. You have to put forth effort in a relationship. You have to put forth effort. You have to work at these things to figure out what works and what doesn't. Things go back to martial arts. For me, one of the chief tenets in Jeet Kune Do, Bruce Lee's form of martial arts that he created, is use what's useful, discard what isn't, and add what you can essentially call your own. I use that approach in many things in my life, but in a relationship, it's key, it's vital. I encourage you to seek counsel from the elders. Talk to your mom, talk to your dad, talk to grandpa and grandma, because they have some useful information for you. Use what's useful, ignore what isn't, and then add what you can call your own to make it yours, to tailor make your relationship to what both parties' needs are. The good brother Zoe William quotes the philosopher Jiddu Krishnamurti in saying, "It is no measure of health to be fully integrated into a profoundly sick society." This capitalist society that we live in is the murderer of relationships. What type of relationship currency do you bring to the table? Are you a good listener? Are you considerate? Are you loving? Are you caring? Are you a protector? You only discover these things once you get back to our very first bullet point, which was getting to yourself, learning yourself. That's how you get there. So the next thing that I want to talk about is identifying and conveying your intentions. Identifying and conveying your intentions. I know that's difficult for some of us men because we like to parade ourselves around with this false bravado. I ain't messed up about this. I ain't messed up about that. I'm guilty of that. Instead of first identifying what it is that I expect, what it is that I want. Once again, I have to get with self for that. I can't look for that to come from any external place. I have to get with Arshawn about that. So what do I want? What do I need? More importantly, what do I need? Identifying that and then conveying that to my partner. And I promise you, baby doesn't have to come in here and front me out. I'm going to tell you, I am not good at that. I haven't identified what it is in my past, what it is in my upbringing, what it is in my childhood, or where that hindrance comes from. I have not figured that out. I haven't identified that. But just like in my fighting, I'm a nose to the grindstone, tough it out, stiff up the upper lip, muscle through it. And that's kind of my approach to things. I'll muscle through it. Okay, I know this is uncomfortable. I know I don't really like voicing what my wants are, what my needs are, what my expectations are. I just don't feel comfortable doing that, but I'm going to do it because the relationship means the world to me. This relationship means everything to me. So I'm going to press toward the upward call, as the good brother Paul would say in the Bible. I speak not as if I have attained, but I press on toward the upward call. I'm trying to get to that place. I'm trying to put in the work that it takes to make sure that I do everything that I have in my power to make sure that I have a successful relationship. I thought it was important to share this tonight because a lot of my listeners, I won't say a lot because I don't know all of them, but I will tell you the majority of my listeners that I know personally come from the low-income communities. And oftentimes we don't have a reference point to what a successful relationship looks like. So as I've gone through these things trial by error, trial and error, try this, don't work, try that, don't work, try that. Oh, got a little something. I feel compelled to get on this platform that I have been blessed with and share. So let's talk about identifying. So what's tied into that is an exercise that I like to call self-reflection. Self-reflection is vital. Oftentimes I do self-reflection in places when I'm alone, like the bathroom, my bedroom, in my car. I may go over a conversation that me and my sig other had, and I think maybe I could have said that differently. Maybe I could have acted a little bit differently in that situation. Maybe I should have done something differently. Well, maybe it was my fault. And I know somebody out there is like, well, self-reflection sounds a whole lot like talking to yourself. And I think that makes you crazy. No, it doesn't make you crazy. Even if you answer back, because that's what I heard. Talking to yourself don't make you crazy. Answering back does. Let me tell you, I have some of the greatest conversations all on my lonesome. Okay, I'm going to edit that last part out. Anyways, self-reflection is very important because there's nobody there. A lot of times our ego will have us take a stance and not back off of it, even if we're wrong. You know what I mean? Our egos will get in the way, and we're in a situation where we're face to face with our significant other, the person that we chose over all other people. This is the greatest person in the world for me. And our ego will say, I don't care if she's right. You dig your heels in and you don't back down. You win, because that's what winners do. That's what that toxic ass ego tells me. And I'll do it too. I'll get in a 3-point stance like I'm playing football. I ain't moving. And it's not until later on when I'm in my car driving to work, or when I'm at work in my office by myself, in the bathroom by myself. It's always when I'm by myself that reason will slide out the cut and say, hey, man, you know you were wrong. You're a person who possesses a certain level of intelligence, and you know that you were wrong. And you need to do something to make it right. Now, I will share with you, when you have a capacity to self-reflect, identify a wrong, and express that, hey, baby, I was wrong, and the other person hasn't quite gotten to that place yet, oh, it's disheartening, because I want that gratification when you're wrong. Very seldomly do I get that gratification. But I can't hold her to this unrealistic expectation, this unrealistic standard. Why is it unrealistic, Arshawn? I'll tell you why. Because we're human beings. We're all in this together, but we're not in it the same. So I can't expect that just because I've gotten to this place in my walk as a human being, that she's at that same place. So sometimes when you become more mature in a certain area than your mate, sometimes it will leave you feeling, what's the word? Disappointed. Because we've been taught since we were kids in elementary school about reciprocity. You get back what you put out, and do good things come back. Bullcrap. It doesn't work like that in relationships, because we have no idea what that other person is going through. We have no idea what stage they are at in their development. And it is unfair for us to put that on them. Well, I'm doing this, so you should be doing it too. That's wrong. It's not okay. And I know that society will say X, Y, and Z, but what did I just say? Not 10 minutes ago. It is no measure of health to be fully integrated into a profoundly sick society. Jiddu Krishnamurti. I'm reading one of his books right now. It's amazing. It's just mind-blowing. But we have to throw away societal norms. We have to get rid of our ideals that are, when we get all the way down to the most molecular level, they're based in capitalism. They're based in capitalism. Because why? A guy has to make this. He has to have that credit score. He has to drive this car. A woman has to have this. She has to. Let me tell you something. We have to, last thing, before we wrap up tonight, I want to get to this last point. We have to learn how to identify relationship currency. I use the word currency, and I'm not talking about money. Relationship currency, an emotional barometer, emotional intelligence. What do you bring? If we take money and tangible things out of the equation, what do you offer? Let's take vaginas and penises out of the equation too, because there are those of us who think that just because we're swinging, that's all we need to bring. And then there are some of our sisters out here who think that because they got that WAP, that's all they have to bring. And that's not the case. So we have to start identifying these relationship currencies. We have to start identifying what we bring to the table, whether we have $2 in our pocket or we have $2 million in our pockets. There should be something, there should be a part of your being that remains regardless to exterior forces. No matter what's around you, no matter what you have, no matter what you don't have, you may have the ability to make people laugh. You may have the ability to sing. You may have the ability to write poetry. You may have the ability to just be a good listener. There's some people that, and I'm not talking about just sitting there blindly flipping through channels while your wife talks. I'm not talking about just scrolling through Facebook while your husband talks. I'm talking about intently listening. It is a real skill. It is a real skill, and not everyone has it. Not everyone possesses that skill. So, and there are dozens of other relationship currencies that I don't even know about. So I'd like to see some of these suggestions in the comments. I'd like to see some of these. You guys can email me. You can inbox me. I'd like to see some of the suggestions for relationship currencies. But oftentimes we pick the wrong person because we don't have a template. We don't have a map. We don't have the Google Maps for relationships. They haven't made that app yet. So that's why you got people like me who think it's very important to share this information, because I failed. I have failed a number of times in relationships. I have failed in friendships. And before I get out of here tonight, I do want to share one more thing. I know I said the last one was the last one, but this is the last one. Guys, especially my brothers who come from the urban environment, my brothers from the low-income communities, from the hood, from the trailer park, who were essentially raised by wolves. Let me tell you what started helping me on this journey. What I started doing was I said, I'm going to treat my lady like I treat the homies. Because let me tell you something. When I was in those streets, you're not going to find a more loyal guy. If we're out and about, you're my man, and you get into a fight, we get into a fight. That's me. That's the kind of friend I am. We go out to eat. You don't have any money. I got money. You got money. That's the kind of friend I am. I mean, I am that guy. So I had to start taking that energy, and this is a process. Please, not a program. Program has a beginning, a middle, and end. A process never ends. This is a process, because as we grow together and we learn each other, different things come up, and we have to start applying this information to these things as they come up. So for my brothers who come from the trailer parks, for my brothers who come from the hood, start treating your lady like you treat the homies, with that same loyalty, with that same protector energy, with that the same zeal that you have for the homies who you crippin' with, or bloodin', or Latin and Kingin', or GDing. The same energy that you have for those guys, the way that you will go to war for them, the way that you will do anything for them, the way that you will give them your last. Let's start sharing that energy with your lady. For my sisters, for my beautiful sisters out there who come from the trailer park or come from the hood, whose mama is only 12 years older than them, you know, whatever the case may be, whose mama is crazy as hell. So she didn't get to see an accurate representation of what it means to be a woman. Those catty ass little friends who have probably ruined about 4 of your relationships for you. The same love, care, and concern and consideration that you have for them. Let's take that same energy. Let's take all of that and let's aim that at your man. And let's start putting that together and saying, hey, I don't have all the answers. I don't know it all, but I am dedicated to you and to working toward getting to a place to where we have one of these fantastic relationships that I've heard about. Man, I want to thank all of my listeners. I want to thank my boy Aaron Vincent. I want to thank, hey, Crystal, what's going on, girl? I want to thank all of my people in Facebook who are listening, who are watching, who have commented. I'm sorry I didn't get to your comments, brothers, but I had a direction that I needed to go in. Trust me, I'm going to look at the comments and I'm going to leave a comment or I'll inbox you, whatever the case may be. But I hope you guys got something out of this. Like, share, subscribe. If you're listening on Podbean, Spotify, or YouTube, smash that like button. Leave something in the comments. Let me know that you're listening. Share some advice. Maybe I got something wrong. I don't have all the answers, but what I do have is a passion to share what I do know. My name is Arshawn Wade, a.k.a. The Angry Nerd. Peace.